And Rachel, I apologize if there are any kitty footprints on the papers because my cat has to leave his signature on everything that I do. Everything.
I have several cats, so I understand that.
And of course it has to be right
And
when he
dogs.
comes back in from being in the mud. So hopefully the prints are only on mine. Oh, I think I gave you Cindy, or maybe I have all of them.
No, I don't.
Here we go. Here we go. All right. Yeah, those are yours. All for you.
All right.
And these are mine. Okay. Yes.
I was just remembering what I forgot. I'm just remembering that I forgot something.
Okay, now, I just noticed something that I printed out the wrong agenda. Our agenda is on coaching on topic today.
No, that's what I have.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, just down here.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, we
I
just had some
threw me
other
off.
things that we need to do from the last one.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, I know, but we are not, I know what it is. What threw me off is I have modeling brief at the bottom, but we're not doing modeling brief today. But I left it on there because I thought, well, maybe. And then turned out we're going to do it another time.
Okay.
So we can just cross that out.
Okay.
Okay, and the second one on here is implementation plan for Circuit 3. We are going to move that down to the bottom.
Okay.
And everything should say Circuit 3.
All right.
Okay. All right, so to start, for coaching on topic, I like to summarize the critical aspects of the learning objective. So remember back in Circuit 1 and Circuit 2 that the purpose of coaching on topic activity is to provide evidence-based content. That's that word we were probably trying to come up with last time. Evidence-based content from the Pyramid Plus approach, training curriculum relevant to the practice-based learning objective. Does that still make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so let's review our practice-based learning objective by looking at our professional development plan. Now, I sent a copy of this as we came up with it, and then after I had time to review with Robin, she helped me to really tighten up the learning objective. To still do what you want to do in the practice-based learning, but really got it down to one sentence. So on the second page there, and it's still measurable and specific and attainable, and unless you feel like you want to just do one child, I think you could do 2 children, and you could certainly try to do that, but as we go along, if
It
you
was
feel
an
like,
and/or.
okay.
It was an and/or, and that was because I was afraid that. Oh, see, yeah, there's a couple things here that I think are not working. Okay, so this is what this is where it's not saying what my intention is. So the purpose of having Adeline and Christian is that if one of them is gone, I've got the other one there to do it on. So that's why it was an and or Adeline and Christian.
Okay.
So I can do a combination of both of them if I need to. The other thing, using 2 different tools, 3 times each for 2 weeks. And I am not wanting to collect data for 2 weeks. If I can get that done in 3 days, then I want to get that done within 3 days. That was just like the timeline. So it was more like within 2 weeks. That was that time frame of when are you going to get this done that we were trying to do that for. So that wasn't, I didn't want to say that I'm going to do that for 2 weeks.
Okay, now I'm not sure why the 2 weeks came up unless
Because we had on ours that we were going to do it within 2 weeks of my behavioral thing. So it was giving me a time limit of when I needed to use that skill.
Okay.
That's where that came from.
Okay, and you would still like to do,
But
since there are 2 children, you'd still like to try to get 3 times each child.
No, 3 times total for each of the 2 different tools. So I'm going to have tool A, and I want to complete that 3 times. And I want to have tool B, and I want to complete that 3 times. But I don't want it to matter whether it's completed on Christian or Adeline.
Okay, so whichever tool gets
But they
up
need
to
to be
3
yes.
first.
No, I'm going to do 6 things. 3 on A and 3 on B. But A might have 1 Christian, 2 Adeline's. B might have 1 Christian, 2 Adeline's.
Okay, so even though the behavior you're collecting is different.
Yes.
Okay, say it real slow for me again, and I'll write it down.
Okay,
So Rachel will collect data on Adeline
and
or Christian using 2 different tools,
3 times each.
3 times each, for 3 days to inform the function of the children's behavior. And you do learn. I mean, it's not part of the learning objective, but you are learning through it. So.
Now I'm wondering what to do with this week's thing. Because what you just said was for 3 days. And so to me, that's sounding like I have to do these 3 consecutive days. And what if I can't? So that's why I was giving myself a large time frame to complete the tools in.
Okay, 3 days.
But when I'm saying 4, how about just like within 2 weeks? If we just change that word, within instead of 4. Because 4 makes it sound like I am doing this every day. But within sounds like I'm just giving myself some kind of time frame so I'm not slacking, lagging.
Right.
But I'm giving myself some space to work within.
Okay, good.
That sounds awesome.
Yes, it does. I like that. All right, now, so the next thing is that I also like to review that this strategy to be taught is the this strategy to be taught and this practice to be learned leads to the practice-based learning objective, which we just went over, on the skill set rubric. So it goes to the skill set rubric next. Also, it is a strategy on the next and, of course, the top level of the pyramid, since that's where we are in Circuit 3, which includes intensive intervention, which is assessment-based intervention that results in individualized behavior support plans. And we went over that the last time, too. Do you have any questions about that?
No.
Okay. And so with the coaching on topic, I like to share a little bit about my own experience, and I did talk about this a little bit the other day, where I was the director of a small child care center. And I believe this is the only time I had challenging behavior happen in any of my programs. Unless you want to consider Kevin, during that nap time transition. But this little boy, he would hit and kick and spit and throw chairs, and mostly all those aggressive behaviors was towards the teachers. And so other parents in the program, knowing what was happening, they even said, listen, if you don't expel that child, we are pulling all our children out and you'll have one child to watch. So we did, not having any information on Pyramid Plus, we did take some information about, take down more like incident reports. I did one, my assistant did one, and then we called the parents in to talk to them about how we might support their child and work on a plan together. And unfortunately, the parents just said, well, he doesn't do that at our house. We're going to pull him out. So, it was unfortunate that they didn't stick with it. But had they stuck with the program, I would have wanted some supports like this, because I don't know that I would have known what to do next. You know what I mean? So, anyway, that's my own story, and I'm sticking to it. And now, he did get some supports eventually, because now he's just a really nice young man. It was years ago. So let's move on to the mini training on the data collection tools, and that is in a packet with your paper clip on it.
Yes, got it.
Okay. Here's my cat printed page. Set this over here. So the first one, talks about that it's the beginning. It's data collection tools is beginning the process of positive behavior support. And this comes from the positive behavior support family questions and answers in module 3B of all the materials that you got in training. And really it's just that first line. I printed the whole thing so you could read the whole thing if you wanted to, but it's positive behavior support begins by identifying the behaviors that are a concern and observing the behaviors in the situations where they occur. And if you don't mind, you can read the rest later since you have a copy. The next page is called the Roadmap to Behavior Support Plan. And what was helpful to me with this is that it's actually in step 3, where collecting data is part of step 3. I kept calling the data collection tools themselves functional behavior assessments, and that was incorrect. So that's just a part of that. So these are the steps, and I'll just let you read through this instead of reading it to you. Well, when you do that, I'm going to get some water. It's a little bit hard to read because it came out so dark. Okay, so like I said, and we talked about this, that the whole process can take 3 to 4 months, and there's a lot of steps within it. So the fact that you're practicing a strategy of collecting data is just a piece of that whole process, which would be associated with the functional behavior assessment. And then I want to go on to, I selected 3 different tools for us to review, and then you can choose the 2 that you like. The behavior rating scale first I have some information on that. At first I was going to go over 2 of the slides, but the second slide can be confusing because it really doesn't give the whole picture, but I can give some more explanation about behavior rating scale. Okay, so this is one of the tools. It does not require tallying, counting, or stopwatches. As a matter of fact, if you use time in the process, you can kind of make your best guess. Was that about 5 minutes worth? Was that 10 minutes worth? Was that more? But you don't have to actually time it. Designed by the team, defined anchor sets, and the anchor sets also are referred to as keys. So if you look at the next page, which is the tool itself, these down here, the numbers 1 through 5, and up here 1 through 5, you can call them keys, you can call them anchor sets. It's just anchor set sounds very, I don't know, technical to me. And define the anchor sets. Teacher rates the performance of the behavior by circling the anchor, so it's just real easy to circle as you go along. This type of data collection allows the team to compare the behavior across contexts, identifying behavioral trends, evaluate the effectiveness of the intervention strategies once the behavior plan has been developed and implemented, and it measures frequency, intensity, duration, or latency. So the rest of it's pretty simple. The child, the rater, observation period, the dates would go up here, date and time, and what is the desirable behavior, what is the challenging behavior. And then down here, this is where you can come up with this information for your key. And that could be like, I want to give you an example of that. It could be like, and you'd want to use one per child, of course. But an example might be, like I'm thinking about Christian. Is Christian the one that has a hard time taking a nap? And both of them.
Okay. Sometimes an issue with both.
Okay. So it might look like this. 1 is that the child's absent. So you know that. Or not. And 2 could be does not exhibit behavior that day. 3 could be he exhibits that behavior for 3 to 5 minutes, but allows redirection finally. And 4 might be 5 to 10 minutes and allows redirection, and 5 could be he's out of control, and and so forth. But see, the tool is flexible in that those can be created. Any questions about that tool?
No. I was doing a little bit of review of tools, and that's what I forgot, that I had some set aside, and this was one of them.
Okay.
And when I was kind of looking at it, it was, I had a blank, and I had one that was kind of filled out with the sets. So.
So you had more examples of the keys?
Yeah, it was filled out with the desirable behavior, the replacement behavior, and the challenging behavior. And yeah, so that makes sense to me.
Okay.
Because I did see that.
So there's one. And I think I have an extra copy. The next one is the scatter plot, and I think I have these reversed. So the scatter plot is the one I want to go over next. So this tool collects information about frequency more than anything. And it's tallying during a whole day. One behavior per form, or if you notice there's a cluster of behaviors that are consistently together, it can be several behaviors together. Let's say you notice he does 2 things every time.
Or like his temper tantrum consists of dropping on the floor,
Yeah.
screaming, kicking.
Right.
Then I can group those together in temper tantrum.
Right.
I do that kind of cluster, even though that's defined as
Exactly.
what is his temper tantrum look like.
Right.
Okay.
And so we have our schedule.
And so is that where the
Okay.
behavior key is, where I would
Exactly.
define what the
What the-
behavior is and what it means? Okay.
And then here's your daily schedule with the times, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and it's just check marks.
Okay.
Or if you want to come up with another key, you know, another type of, you know, if you want to get even more specific, you could.
Okay.
All right, so that's that one. And I had, oh, okay. Then we have, did you have any questions on that one? Okay. So the
And that
next,
was one that I didn't have.
so another one is the ABC data sheet, and I included the activity sheet to go with that. They go
Okay.
hand in hand. That way you can see, and you might remember this from the training.
I do.
And because the activity sheet, you know, it helps you to pick out what was the antecedent, and they give you the behavior there and the consequence. And obviously the consequence is that Mom allowed Jennifer to sleep with her. And 2 other scenarios there. So I didn't provide this to actually do it unless you wanted to practice with it, but just to help you know then how to fill this form out. Date, time, initials, what's the antecedent, what's the specific behavior, and the consequences, what happens immediately after. And this could be what happens immediately after by the teachers or the peers. It could be something the peers do that is consequence. So those are the
That's
3,
a good point.
and that's a mini
point.
training. Any questions about the ABC data sheet?
No. I do like that, that pointing out that it could be a teacher consequence and it could be a peer consequence. I think we always,
Yeah, I forget that too.
that we get stuck on that it's a teacher thing, but that peers really are delivering either a positive or negative consequence too.
Sure. They're running and screaming the other way sometimes.
Yeah,
Or they're avoiding
giggling
that
or
child.
laughing, and
Right.
it's encouraging them to do it more. Yeah, I can really see that both
Could be
ways.
negative or
That they don't want to play with them,
to.
or that they're giggling and laughing and kind of.
Yeah, this is fun. We have a class clown today.
Do it more.
So
Well, that's interesting, huh?
I think to fill out the evaluation might be a good next step
Okay.
before we go on. very much. I'm so here too. And then next, why don't we go ahead and choose the two tools? I should say, can you please choose the two tools you would prefer?
Yes, I would like to do the scatter plot and the ABC data sheet, and I would like to share my reasons for that.
Oh, sure.
And the scatter plot really struck me as something that could be useful, in particular with Christians. So I'm hoping that I'm going to have opportunities to really use that one with Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because he really is. Oh, I just knocked on a chair.
That's
Sorry.
okay.
It didn't want to make it jump or something.
The
I am really wanting to. The reports that I'm hearing about the behavior is throughout the day. It's a throughout the day thing, and so I can see how this one could really be helpful in seeing, is it transitions? Are there certain times of the day that are harder for him than others? Certain times of the days that we need to focus strategies on. So for him, that's really making sense to identify key times.
Okay.
Because it's not just one time of the day. Then I'd like to use the ABC data sheet, and that I think is going to be particularly helpful with Adeline, because she is the behavior that is being talked about most often, or is the most challenging, is pretty specific to nap time and that one transition. So now that we kind of already have some scatter plot idea for her, and have already identified when that tough time is. Mm-hmm. This looks like it's kind of like the next step, almost like you started a scatter plot, when's the problem? Mm-hmm. Then I'm going to use this and see, okay, now that I kind of know where a problem is, let's really look at what's happening before her behavior, what behavior she's exhibiting, what are those consequences, and that can really be useful informing the plan.
Okay.
What do we want to do? What behaviors do we want to teach her? Mm-hmm. What behaviors us as teachers do we want to continue doing, and what behaviors for us as teachers do we want to not do anymore? Because now we're seeing that those might be consequences that are a positive consequence to a negative behavior. That's continuing. That's maintaining. Thank you. There's that word, maintaining, that I was looking for. And the reason why I'm not doing this one is because this really looks like third step. Now that I know what I'm doing, I want to put those same specific behaviors on here and put down what we're trying to teach her to do, and really look and see, is this working? Are we getting more of the desirable behaviors? Are we getting less of the challenging behaviors? So that's really, really interesting to me, Cindy, because I guess I always kind of thought about, and I guess it's true to some extent that there's kind of different forms maybe for different behaviors, but I've never thought of them as kind of building and growing on each other, that if you just need to kind of get started, this is a good get started form. This is kind of a good next step form. This is a kind of a good next step form, and now we're kind of to the not just seeing what's the problem and what's going on, but okay, now let's look at, we've got our plan in place, is this working? Is it not working?
And you're right, and there's so many different ways to gather information. There's ways to gather information from the parents, through screens, there's just so many, and the more you have that are needed specifically for that behavior, the better decisions you all make as a team.
Yeah, and I guess I kind of thought of them as different behaviors, different sheets, and I'm seeing them in a new way, maybe at different times in the process, different data collection.
Yeah, good.
Because they'll tell you different things, so that really was very enlightening to me.
Oh, good, good. So how might the strategy be individualized for each child? Thinking about special needs children, challenging behaviors?
Well, definitely for the ABC data sheet, I feel like is already allowing you the individualization for different kids because you're filling in specific behaviors. So you're talking about those very specific behaviors and why they're occurring. I can also see that in having this information, I'm thinking, if I had children who had this really challenging behavior and I was very new and didn't know different developmental disabilities or delays and some of their effects, that would be really important to really, I think I can really see why that team would be so important.
Right.
Because I could be saying, oh, look at all these behaviors and not realize that that those behaviors are because of a lack of communication or those kinds of things,
Yeah, and can you see how somebody on the team who would
might be
valuable,
able to see those kinds of things and say, oh, when
might
you're looking at these
health,
antecedents,
or speech therapist.
I'm interpreting this in a different way because I'm able to see with my lens of my profession.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
So that I really can see how that teaming is really, really important. That you have different people with different knowledge sets to be able to see things. And I really do think that's kind of the beauty of the scatter plot, again, in individualizing, is that the sheets themselves are so open-ended. They really are, that I'm making my own behavior key. I'm saying what the behaviors are, the target behaviors for target kids, and again, with the knowledge that I would gain from this one on a particular kid with the added collective knowledge of a team, then we could really come up with very specific behaviors for that kid that's within their developmental range, all those kinds of things. So it wouldn't matter where the developmental range is because we're defining the behaviors and defining the response for the behaviors on, this one.
Right.
Within the capability of the children, regardless of language or physical or other kind of mental or speech or whatever the disability might be.
Right. Yeah, so you just gave a really good explanation of the value and the importance of implementing evidence-based inclusion practices so that all children can participate and access instruction. And again, we know that comes from Pyramid Plus and their evidence-based content. Like LEAP, building blocks, taxi, shuffle. Am I missing any? There's a few, probably a few more.
Prevent teacher enforce.
Thank you. And that was one I got to research more this last week. That was nice to have that review of that one. So, do you have any questions? Again, any questions about the materials that I presented to you? Okay, and you filled out your evaluation. So the only thing we need to do now is the skill set rubric for the objective, because now we know what the 2 tools are. And we already have dates set on the rest of Circuit 3. And we can review those at the end if you need to. So, let's do that. Oh, and 2, I don't want to forget our implementation plan. Let's jot down some notes on that too. I'll keep that in front of me so I don't forget. Okay, so the skill set rubric. I should have given you a copy. Do you have a copy in front of you?
No, I don't know.
Please tell me I didn't miss that one, then it's still on my printer. Okay, Let me see if I can get somebody to print it out for us. I'm gonna stop the camera
Sure.
and see if I can find it first.